The tale unfolds with our main character, Bojji, born without hearing or speech abilities. Frail and unable to wield a sword, he faced disdain from his people, despite being the rightful first prince. His brother, Data, contrastingly robust, seemed a more suitable heir. Bojji struggled to prove himself, aspiring to inherit his father's throne and become a great king. Doubtful citizens questioned his capability due to his perceived weakness. The narrative centers on the Boss Kingdom, ruled by King Bojji, once a formidable leader ranking 7th among the strongest kings. However, aging and ailing, his impending demise prompted the need to appoint a successor from his two sons, Bojji and Data. Bojji, born of the deceased first wife, displayed a small and weak physique, in contrast to Data, born of the second wife, Hiling, who possessed strength and height. Bojji, mute since birth and deaf throughout his life, faced opposition from the Boss Kingdom inhabitants who deemed him useless. Many preferred Data as the heir. One day, while playing on a hill, Bojji encountered a shadowy figure named Kage, a member of a loyal but accused shadow clan. Despite their tragic history, Kage, seeking belongings, discovered Bojji's generosity when he willingly gave away everything. Returning to the kingdom, Bojji endured harsh insults from the residents who knew of his communication challenges. King Bojji, being aware that Bojji was often underestimated by everyone in the kingdom, attempted to enhance Bojji's authoritative image. He arranged for sword training with Damas, one of the royal sword trainers. Despite the efforts, Bojji's small body and limited physical strength made it challenging for him to match his brother Data, always losing in one-on-one fights. Data showcased impressive fighting skills, earning admiration even from Damas, Bojji's sword trainer. Following a particularly harsh encounter with Data, Bojji suffered injuries to his legs and arms. Kage, who secretly followed Bojji, tried to console him when he cried in his room. Bojji, feeling disheartened by his physical limitations and constant losses to Data, found solace in the growing friendship with Kage. A few days later, King Boss passed away, and the royal advisors revealed the contents of King Bojji's will. Surprisingly, Bojji was chosen as the successor to the royal throne, much to Data's disbelief. Data, disappointed, protested using a magic mirror gifted by the king, which assured him that he would ultimately be chosen as the heir to the throne. The magic mirror's prediction came true, and Data became the king of the Boss Kingdom. Bojji, feeling sad and disappointed with the decision, learned that Kage had gone wandering in the wild. Despite initial opposition from Hiling, Bojji was permitted to venture outside with two bodyguards, Damas and Hakiro. While Hiling allowed Bojji to go, she secretly worried about him, sensing that something bad might happen. A few days later, Bibin, Data's sword trainer, informed Bojji that Kage had disappeared. Concerned for his best friend, Bojji decided to search for Kage. Although Hiling initially opposed Bojji's plan, she eventually allowed him to go to the outside world. Deep down, Hiling cared for Bojji, but her affection had naturally shifted towards her real son, Data, since his birth. On the other hand, Data faced challenges in achieving a high rank during the assessment of the new king's rankings, conducted by the judges. Despite his efforts, Data only secured a rank of 90. Data often dreamt that his older brother would reclaim the throne. However, guided by the magic mirror's suggestion, Data decided to seize power upon his father's demise. Meanwhile, Bojji, who had been on a long journey in the wild world, reached a scorching crater known as the Gates of Hell. Dimes invited Bojji to examine the gates more closely, but it turned out to be part of Dimes' plan to eliminate Bojji by pushing him into the crater. Earlier, Dimes had been instructed by Data to carry out this task. Hakiro, feeling intense anger, promptly engaged in a fierce battle against Dimes. In the course of the fight, one of Dimes' hands was severed. On the flip side, Bojji miraculously survived, shielded by Kage, who had been concealed behind Bojji throughout the ordeal. It was later revealed that Bibin had sent Kage to protect Bojji during his journey. Bibin advised Kage to accompany Bojji and seek someone capable of training him to become stronger. Bojji was invited by Kage to join him on a journey to the Underworld through a hidden path near the Gates of Hell. While they were traveling, an unexpected mysterious smoke emerged, causing them to lose consciousness. Troops from the Underworld then transported them to the royal palace. Elsewhere, Data initiated a ritual to extract power from the frozen corpse of King Boss. The extracted essence was intended to create a magical potion that would grant Data strength similar to King Boss. However, at the last moment, Data hesitated and decided to discard the potion. As Data attempted to leave the dungeon, the loyal royal official, Appice, tried to assassinate him. Apai's efforts were thwarted by a magical mirror revealed to be the embodiment of Miranjo, a close confidant of King Boss. Due to Apai's allegiance to Miranjo, he had no choice but to follow her instructions. Miranjo made Data lose consciousness and compelled him to consume King Boss's potion. Surprisingly, the potion didn't enhance Data's strength as intended. Instead, it revived King Boss's soul, taking control of Data's body. Meanwhile, Bojji and Kage regained consciousness and were brought before King Despair, the powerful ruler ranking second among all kings. Aware that Bojji was King Boss's son, King Despair sought to assess Bojji's strength and combat skills. Bojji was asked to engage in a fight with one of King Despair's commanders, demonstrating his agility by evading every attack. Unfortunately, King Despair remained unimpressed with Bojji's evasive skills and consequently expelled both Bojji and Kage from his kingdom. Before Bojji and Kage left the palace, Kage was informed by the commander that the person capable of training Bojji was Despair, the younger brother of King Dessa. Bojji and Kage got excited and headed straight to Despair's house. Upon their arrival, Kage immediately requested Despair to train Bojji. However, Despair, before accepting Bojji as his student, asked for a substantial amount of money, which Bojji provided in a chest box filled with gold jewelry. Despair acknowledged Bojji as his disciple, mentioning initially that Bojji lacked physical strength, but Despair remained determined to find the right training method. After weeks of intensive training, the results became evident when Kage witnessed Bojji easily destroying a large stone. It was then revealed that Bojji's small and weak body resulted from an agreement between King Bojji and the demon King Boss and Miranjo. Bojji's physical weakness was a sacrifice made for extraordinary power. The demon instructed King Bojji to have a child, and Bojji was the outcome. Meanwhile, upon learning that Bojji was allegedly killed, Hillington, filled with sorrow and anger, sentenced Dimas and Hakiro to death. However, King Boss intervened, revealing that Bojji was alive and training elsewhere. Dimas and Hakiro were released but expelled from the kingdom. Hillington, thinking she was facing Data, discovered it was King Boss. When she inquired about Data, King Boss callously stated that Data had disappeared, causing Hillington to faint. That night, Miranjo sought permission from King Boss to go to the Underworld to gather more troops. The next day, Hillington approached King Boss, requesting Data's return. To her surprise, she heard Data's voice trapped within King Boss's chest. As she attempted to cleave King Boss's chest, the head guard, loyal to King Boss, intervened. Meanwhile, Bojji completed his training with Despair and was prepared to face his enemies. Kage, initially doubtful due to Bojji's small sword, learned from Despair that Bojji's strength lay in evading attacks and targeting opponents' weak points. Grateful for the knowledge and training, Bojji and Kage thanked Despair. Kage then suggested returning to the palace to resolve the conflict. However, Bojji hesitated, traumatized by the past assassination attempt ordered by Dimas. After recalling Hillington's love for him as a child, Bojji finally agreed to return to the palace. On the flip side, King Dessa came to the realization that his youngest brother, Alkan, had managed to escape from the Underworld prison. Deliberately confined by King Dessa due to a pact with a demon for immortality, Alkan headed towards Boss's kingdom. To assert dominance, King Dessa led his troops to the palace. Upon arriving at Boss's palace with Underworld prisoners, Alkan and his cohorts captured King Boss, gaining control of the royal palace. Meanwhile, Bojji and Kage, guided by Underworld warriors, proceeded to Boss's palace, unaware of the Underworld's plan. Alkan, in the city, confronted Bojji and the Underworld soldiers, but the Underworld commander, remembering the warning against Bojji fighting Alkan, directed Bojji to protect Queen Hyling at the palace. Bojji, finding a beaten two-headed snake, defeated Gigan, seeking healing for his snake from Hyling. Running out of potions, Hyling's predicament was solved by Kage's spare bottles. Bojji, fighting and defeating Gigan, turned former foes into allies. The two-headed snake urged Bojji to the dungeon to thwart the Underworld forces. In parallel, Alkan, fighting the Underworld commander, was struck by magical lightning from King Dessa. Seizing the opportunity, the commander tied up Alkan. As King Dessa and the Underworld army arrived at Boss's palace, Bojji, accompanied by Gigan, reached the dungeon. King Dessa sought Bojji's help in capturing Miranjo, the Chaos Architect. Gigan, resisting return to the Underworld, attacked King Dessa. A telepathic message led King Dessa to retreat, allowing Bojji to face Boss. Promising Gigan a position, King Dessa returned with the Underworld army. On the other hand, Miranjo found herself in the custody of the Underworld prisoners. Messages were sent to Alkan through telepathy, urgently pleading for his help. Alkan, upon receiving Miranjo's message, swiftly untied himself and headed towards the palace. Upon arrival, he coincidentally encountered Bojji and Kage. Alkan, harboring intentions to harm Bojji, initiated a battle that seemed inevitable. Despite Bojji stabbing Alkan multiple times, Alkan remarkably survived unharmed. Realizing Alkan's immortality, Bojji had no choice but to persist in his attacks. Notably, even the Underworld army's commander in Dessa couldn't overcome Alkan. Witnessing Bojji nearly succumb to Alkan, Kage transformed into a giant shadow, swallowing Alkan. However, Alkan revived by piercing Kage's body with his sword, resulting in Kage's instant demise. In a weakened state with numerous stab wounds, Bojji faced the threat of being killed by Alkan. Subsequently, we transition to the moment when King Boss, imprisoned, discussed his past with Miranjo. Data, trapped in King Boss's heart, observed the memories. Miranjo, once a child from Hamira, the land of magicians, sought help from Basi, a wandering god. Basi aided the people of Hamira against the god's cruelty, but some residents betrayed their own, leading to the gruesome torture of Miranjo. In response, enraged Boss avenged Miranjo's suffering by eliminating the traitors. Boss and Miranjo left the country together, and their bond deepened over time. Encountering a demon, they sought to make Boss the strongest human, at the cost of his age and his first child's strength. Data, born from this sacrifice, was destined to be the vessel for King Boss's soul. Miranjo, aware of Boss's impending death, devised a plan for his resurrection. Having witnessed the past, Data harbored anger towards his father but sympathy for Miranjo. Data promised to protect Miranjo, believing in her goodness. Miranjo, witnessing Bojji's apparent death by Alkan, left the mirror and entered a soldier's body to heal Bojji and Kage. Bojji, revived by Miranjo's healing, learned of her tragic past through Dispella. Moments later, Bojji and Kage were resurrected. As Bojji prepared to face Alkan again, King Boss emerged, utilizing Data's healing power. King Boss, armed with Data's powers, confronted Alkan, overpowering him with the might of his mace and ultimately destroying Alkan. However, Alkan can still rise again because he is an immortal King Boss. He then had the idea of crushing Alkan's body into a ball of flakes and burying the body fragments into a very large boulder so that Alkan won't be able to regenerate his body anymore. After that, King Boss came to meet Miranjo, who was in the magic mirror, and apologized for making her suffer tremendously in the past. King Boss, who still loves Miranjo very much, said that he would go with her to the afterlife if he died in the last battle. It seems that King Boss doesn't know that Miranjo's soul can't go to the afterlife because she violated the agreement with the devil by resurrecting King Boss again. After that, King Boss told everyone in the palace that he would kill anyone who tried to take Data's body and bring him back to life. Bojji, who still loves Data, chose to go forward and face King Boss. The other dignitaries, Damas, Bibin, Dorsh, and Apias, supported Bojji. When Demas was about to attack King Boss, but Bojji suddenly stopped him. Bojji explained that currently, King Boss is in Data's body, so the only person who can fight him without killing Data is Bojji. The epic battle between Bojji and King Basi finally began. Initially, Bojji could only evade King Basi's attacks while attempting to identify his weak points. After some time, Bojji discovered King Basi's vulnerability. He managed to destroy the mace held by King Basi and targeted his weak point, resulting in King Basi being swiftly knocked to the ground. Crawling over to Miranjo with the intention of destroying her and returning Data to his original body, Bojji's attempt was thwarted as he feared it could harm Miranjo. Observing the sadness in King Basi's face, Miranjo chose to yield, urging Bojji to destroy her magic mirror so Data could regain control of his body. Following the destruction of the magic mirror, the souls of King Basi and Miranjo ascended. A giant red devil, who had made a pact with them, suddenly appeared and flew into the sky to consume Miranjo's soul. Apologizing to King Basi, Miranjo couldn't join him in the afterlife. A thunderbolt from King Dessa struck the red demon, and Dispatch quickly decapitated it before making a deal. Dispatch offered to return the red demon's head in exchange for granting one wish. Winspoo was about to state his wish when Data intervened, requesting the demon to bring Miranjo back to life. The red devil promptly granted Data's wish. Miranjo's revival brought joy to Spa, who abandoned her request to be taken by Data. Witnessing her two beloved children survive, Healing, overjoyed, hugged them both. In the end, forgiveness prevailed in the palace for Miranjo's past actions. She promised to change for the better. Data knelt before Bojji, handing over the royal throne. Bojji became the king of the Boss Kingdom, welcomed by everyone. Kage, feeling his mission was accomplished, decided to leave Boss's palace the next day. During Bojji's inauguration as the new king, he realized that Kage had disappeared. Despite being a beloved and fair king, Bojji felt something was missing. Hilling, recognizing this, encouraged Bojji to seek freedom with Kage, releasing him from any constraints. Hilling always believed that Kage was a true friend who brought happiness and brightness to Bojji. Upon hearing this, Bojji decided to give up his title as king to Data and embarked on a quest to find Kage. After several days of travel, Bojji finally reunited with Kage. Bojji felt so overjoyed that he couldn't help but burst into tears. Initially, Kage was angry at Bojji for relinquishing his position as king. However, Bojji assured Kage that he would wander and build his own empire one day. This marked the end of the season.